The WWE, formerly known as World Wrestling Entertainment, and before that, the World Wrestling Federation, is the largest professional wrestling promotion in the United States. Since its founding in the 1950s, the WWE has been home to hundreds of performers and launched the careers of more than a few bona fide Hollywood superstars. It's also big business. Via its SmackDown, Raw, and NXT shingles, as well as merch, video games, etc., the company grosses more than $1 billion annually, drawing more than 1 million spectators per year to its various live events. While the company is currently in a moment of transition, for this Patreon-sponsored episode of the Great Pop Culture Debate, we look back at these kings of the ring, these studs of the squared circle, as we aim to name the best WWE champion of all time. I laid the egg from which the gobbledygooker emerged at the 1990 Survivor Series, and my giblets have never felt the same. I'm your host, Eric Rezsnyak. Please help me welcome my superstar lineup of guest panelists for this astonishingly butch episode. First up, it's our Patreon sponsor for this episode, Dr. Chad Rezsnyak, who is recording this podcast with a broken frickin' neck.
Oh, it's true. It's damn true.
Kurt Angle, if you're listening, you are welcome to put me in a chokehold at any time. Next, coming in from parts unknown, weighing in at none of your business, it's our big brother, Brian Rezsnyak.
If you smell what my ass is cooking.
Well, I lived with you for the first 14 years of my life, so unfortunately I am familiar with all of that.
It hasn't gotten any better.
I bet. And finally, they're the greatest of all time. It's Brayden Rezsnyak.
And you can't see me.
Well, this is an audio medium, so technically nobody can see right now, Brayden. And up in the producer booth, we have Bob Erlenback, who is glad to be on the outside of this steel cage match. If you're curious about how we ended up with this slamming 16, become a Patreon supporter of the show, or listen to the 3-minute preview available wherever you listen to podcasts. And don't forget, you can head to this episode on greatpopculturedebate.com to find the listener bracket so you can play along with us at home. While you're there, check out some of our other Patreon-sponsored episodes like Best Nintendo Villain, Best Song of 1985, and Best Final Fantasy Game. And with that out of the way, play my entrance theme. It's Funky Town by Lip Sync. And let's body slam these debates. First up, I'm on the ropes as the rest of the panel is pushing forward 1 seed Stone Cold Steve Austin, but I'm proudly panning for 4 seed Goldberg. Don't even bother arguing why Stone Cold should advance here. I believe the answer is because he said so. I'll just give my raw thoughts on Goldberg. He's a former NFL player who, after an injury, found a successful career in pro wrestling with a significant run of the WCW before moving to WWE in the early 2000s. In 2003, he defeated Triple H to become the World Heavyweight Champion, a title he held for more than 80 days. I could tell you that's the reason I'm voting for Bill Goldberg. But the truth is I'm voting for him almost entirely because, for my tastes, he is the most impressive physical specimen on this list. 6'4", 285 pounds, a wall of flesh. His proportions are insane. This man puts the traps in Thirst Trap. I wasn't even watching the WWE when he was active, but I still knew about him. He's also had a significant success outside of wrestling, acting in more than a dozen movies, appearing in TV series. He hosted a knife-creating reality competition for 2 seasons on the History Channel, and he had a recurring role on NCIS Los Angeles. In summation, Goldberg is hot and could get it. Who's next? I volunteer as tribute. But Chad, I'm assuming you're sticking with Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Yeah, I don't have any real love for Bill Goldberg.
Neither does Bret Hart. You should
I will always refer to him as Bill Goldberg because of Bret Hart. It's the funniest, pettiest thing. I love it.
I love pettiness. Brayden,
you could ask Bret Hart what he had for lunch yesterday, and he would tell you about how much he hates Bill Goldberg.
Brayden, are you sticking with Stone Cold Steve Austin?
I'm sticking with Stone Cold, not because I love Stone Cold, but because Goldberg almost killed The Undertaker, so, yeah.
Well, I mean, he is The Undertaker. Is kind of a hazard of the business. But all right, Stone Cold Steve Austin advances into round 2. Next, the majority of the panel is heavily connected to 2 seed The Rock, but Brian prefers 3 seed Triple H because he's that damn good. Brayden, don't drain any resources as you stand steady with The Rock. Brian, it's time to play the game. Defend Triple H. Brian, please go first.
Well, first of all, I protest the fact that these two are matched up this early. I feel like this was a setup to create this debate here. But that's okay. That's what this is about, right?
That's right. That's what it's about.
So I love The Rock. The Rock is fantastic. And if he was up against anybody else, I'd probably put him through. Triple H was the constant that stayed when everybody else left. Stone Cold bailed because he didn't like what was going on with him, so he took off. Rock took off, went to Hollywood. A bunch of other guys kind of came and went, and Triple H was there through all of it. And now, I mean, Triple H is now running the entire company.
Right.
So if you really look at just the overall body of work, everything he's done in and out of the ring, that's to me, that's why I put him over The Rock. The Rock's a fantastic performer, and everyone knows who The Rock is. Ultimately, he's a household name. But for a WWE, from their standpoint, I don't know where WWE is today without Triple H. Ultimately,
All right. Well, since this is a 3-1, I'm going to ask Brayden, did he sway you or are you sticking with The Rock?
I'm sticking with The Rock. Very, very easy decision here for me.
he's 14.
He is 14. That's a good point. Chad, did he sway you or are you sticking with The Rock?
No, I'm sticking with The Rock. I mean, if you are using the rubric that Brian is using, it is an easy vote for Triple H. In terms of overall impact on the organization, Triple H is probably going to beat basically everybody here. But to kind of counter Brian's point of like, oh, he was the constant, he was here the whole time, because he was bopping the owner's wife or owner's daughter. But I mean, I'm basing it mostly off of kind of their in ring work, largely around like the championships, but just broadly their in ring stuff. And I mean, Triple H just, I don't know. I mean, he was fine. He did what he needed to do, but like Rock was just a completely different level of performer from
He
Triple
was
H.
fine. Triple H was fine.
He was
I
fine.
mean, he was involved in a very, very racist storyline against Booker T. That's one of the main reasons I'm not voting for him.
He didn't write the creative.
Yeah, but he did say, quote, people like you don't win championships, which is, like, not great.
Maybe he had people that that do spinneroonies.
Some of that is Vince behind the scenes being like, you need to say
100%.
this stuff.
I
So,
wish he did a spinner.
yeah.
Regardless, that is 3 votes for The Rock, so he will continue into round 2, but good job defending Triple H, and yeah, he's still very much at the core of this organization. Next, in a battle of 90s icons, it's another 3-1 split, as the majority of the panel is still digging 1 seed The Undertaker, but Chad thinks 4 seed Bret Hitman Hart has still got the beat. Brian, lay this debate to rest as you back The Undertaker. Chad, time for you to be the Hitman as you take your shot at moving Bret Hart into round 2. Chad, please go first.
I'm actually a little surprised this is so divided against Brett. I mean, Undertaker is good. Like when Undertaker first came on,
Is
like
he fine? Is he fine?
he's a little above fine.
Oh, he's
It
above
depends on.
fine. Oh, that's wonderful.
It's weird, okay? So Undertaker has this longevity, and I'm sorry, I'm kind of anti Undertaker rather than pro Bret right now. And he's gone through all of these evolutions, which people keep saying like, oh, he's so great because he goes through these evolutions. Except the American Badass evolution was not good. That was a bad evolution, and he went through that evolution where he had like obviously noticeable like separation in his pectoral muscles, and he continued to wear like this leotard that wasn't really doing it for him. It really wasn't, and I think he just kind of hung around way too long. But like early Undertaker stuff, going through the Ministry of Darkness, like very, very cool stuff. But I mean, Brett is arguably the guy who kicked off the Attitude Era. His feud with Stone Cold that led to Stone Cold eventually getting into the heavyweight championship scene. I mean, that was really one of the turning points that turned them from a PG product into whatever happened in the Attitude Era. He was just an immense competitor. What he did in the ring. So Brett had 5 reigns for 654 total days. So he was the 9th longest total reign, whereas Undertaker was not nearly that good. So 4 reigns for 237 days, 24 longest total reign. So I mean, when you look at championship in terms of the scale and scope of it, the excellence of execution, man.
All right, so it's a 3-1. Brayden, you sticking with Undertaker here?
I am going to stick with The Undertaker. And if we're judging our wrestlers based off of clothes, then John Cena should get an automatic win because of those gorgeous jorts.
Absolutely. Brayden, I'm right there with you. Brian, this is a 3-1 decision. You sticking with The Undertaker?
I am. I think it's interesting that he, was vouching for Kane when Kane wouldn't even be around if it wasn't for the Undertaker. So
Much like I wouldn't be around and Chad wouldn't be around if it wasn't for you. You're the Undertaker of this family, really.
well, I think that's more about our parents, but ultimately, sure.
Um, so I'm definitely sticking with The Undertaker here. I'm just going to be really honest about this. I think Bret Hart's a really boring personality. Great wrestler, technically excellent, Dullsville, honey. And in fact, in the Mr. McMahon documentary on Netflix, he flat out says it. Like, we were desperate. We paid him a ton of money, made him the champion, and I immediately regretted it because he does not have the charisma to lead this organization. And he doesn't. Great wrestler, scion of a wrestling dynasty, but just when it comes to personality, he just
That
gets
was
sorry.
Yeah, that was kind of what separated him and Shawn Michaels because that was them two at that point,
Yes.
and Shawn had the charisma, and Bret's fantastic. I mean, Chad's not wrong in the fact that absolutely fantastic performer, he really really was.
Yeah.
But
Yes, and the Undertaker is really well known for his charisma.
But he has a shtick. And what's Bret Hitman Hart's shtick? He's just there.
He hates Bill Goldberg.
yeah, but that didn't
Boo.
come out until later. That was later. But
All
in
right.
fairness, I think the Undertaker may also hate him.
Yes. Well, everybody hates Bill Goldberg except for me, apparently. So we will be moving The Undertaker into round 2. We have another split decision, this time between 3-seed Kurt Angle and 2-seed Randy Orton. Brayden, see if you can kill another legend as you argue for Orton. Chad, watch your neck as you get a cute for Kurt Angle. Bray, please go first.
As we know, Kurt Angle's great, but he's not as good as Randy Orton, okay? He's been in the WWE for longer than everyone else at this point. He's just had a longer career, and he also didn't leave to go into TNA for a little bit. Randy Orton has had 14 world championships in total, which is second, only behind both Ric Flair and John Cena, who are tied for first. He's had many, many personas, incredible work, like just consistently throughout his entire career. He just is one of the best wrestlers of all time, and he has incredible mic skills. Almost ended the Undertaker's undefeated streak at WrestleMania, if I'm not mistaken. He's just done a lot of stuff that Kurt Angle is just not good enough to be able to do, and if he was, then he would have done it, okay?
Chad looks outraged.
I'm so excited for Chad to counter that, but I will say that speaking of mic skills, Brayden, I'm so proud of yours. 14 years old, dropping these facts, so good. Chad, talk to us about Kurt Angle.
Yeah, he couldn't do that stuff because he had a broken frickin' neck. And he won an
Still
Olympic
diff.
gold medal. For this
Still
country,
diff.
he fought and nearly died for this country for a gold medal. Did Randy Orton
And
do
look
that?
what this
No, he
country did
didn't.
to us in return.
My thing with Kurt Angle, and I'll go ahead and spoil it here. Kurt Angle is actually my pick to go all the way, which is probably a little bit weird knowing my era. You sit down.
We
It's a
are
little weird.
sitting. We're all sitting.
I can't tell because he's taller than me. Shoot, I can't even say that. Anyway, one of the things I really like about Kurt is his range. He had phenomenal programs with a variety of different wrestlers with a variety of different styles. I mean, Brock Lesnar. I think he had good programs with John Cena, with Edge, probably with Randy Orton. I mean, anybody who was anybody at that time, he was working good, effective, exciting programs with. I mean, he went with Rock, he went with Stone Cold, everybody. He got the best out of everyone. And one of the things that really sticks out about him for me is his range in like the personalities and the characters that he played. Because he came in, he was super cocky. He was the the heel that everybody liked to boo, and he was like, "You can't boo me, I'm a gold medalist." And then a couple of years later, he's running around talking about cookies and milk with an undersized cowboy hat and spraying people down with a milk truck in the middle of the ring. I mean, just just totally goofy character switch, but he pulled off both of them equally well. I mean, crazy off the top acrobatic moves, doing moonsaults off the cage and stuff like that. That might have been TNA. I don't remember anymore. But going back to Bret Hart, who is not in the bracket anymore, he has kind of the ways that he evaluates wrestlers. It's work, it's look, and it's promo. And as far as I'm concerned, Kurt hits all of those, especially like when he first entered into the WWE. He had the look, he had the work, and he was good on the mic. So he hits all of that for me.
All right, Brian, where are you on this one?
It's really tough. They're both very, very good, and I love Kurt Angle. Like, he did some great stuff, absolutely great stuff. And he could probably have a match right now with any one of us, and it would be a good match. That's how talented he is. Overall body of work, I have to go with Randy Orton. He's still there. He's still actively part of the scene. He's redone his character multiple different times. He reinvents himself consistently. So overall, just by the general body of work, I have to go with Randy Orton.
Well, Chad, I'm on Kurt Angle with you. And since this is a Patreon sponsored episode and you are the Patreon sponsor and it is a tie, I'm going to give you the ability to pick the winner here.
Well, that
Do
seems,
what's right, do what's correct.
seems
not
like
what's
something our government would probably do.
I was
Well,
gonna say this is a
I'm the
microcosm.
Vince McMahon of this podcast.
That's
so
not something you should ever say.
I know.
Am I the first buddy?
You are.
Uh,
What do you got?
I do love Randy Orton. His finisher is absolutely phenomenal. He's very charismatic. He does a lot of good work. But listen, I'm not busting my bracket this early. I'm sorry. It's got to be Kurt Angle.
All right, we're going to move Kurt Angle into round 2. Next, the bulk of the panel continues to crush on the erstwhile Heartbreak Kid 1-seed Shawn Michaels, but Brayden is defying convention by picking 4-seed CM Punk. I will reference a very specific spread and play girl for why I think Shawn Michaels' chances should remain fluffed. Brayden, tell us why you need to see CM Punk in the next round. Bray, please go first.
You can't tell this if you're listening, but I am currently wearing a CM Punk hoodie right now, and on the back it says best in the world, and that's because he is. He's the best wrestler of all time, probably. He's up there at
Wow.
least. There is a very infamous time period called the Summer of Punk where he had incredible matches with people like Brock Lesnar and some incredible storylines, and just all of it was really good. He had a 434-day title reign in which he defended 131 times in that 434-day title reign. So about a quarter, or even more than a quarter, of the days he spent champion, he was defending the title. And he always got overshadowed by John Cena because for some reason, no matter what Cena did, he always got put in the main event. He was fighting like John Laurinaitis, yet he was put in the main event over some incredible CM Punk matches. He still is one of the best wrestlers of all time.
Good argument. It's a 3-1. So, Brian, did he sway you, or are you going to stick with Shawn Michaels?
He did not sway me. CM Punk's great. All right, everybody on this list is great. That's the problem, right?
Except for Bill Goldberg, apparently.
Well,
Exactly.
if it was most career-ending injuries, committed, Bill Goldberg would win this hands down. We wouldn't even have to have a show. But everyone on this list is great. That's what makes it hard. Shawn Michaels, he didn't leave when everybody else was leaving for WCW and take the easy cash. He stayed. He actually he wrestled at WrestleMania 14 with a broken back to basically allow Stone Cold to get his first championship and really kick that Attitude Era into high gear. And he ended up coming back and having a second run that was almost as good as his first run, if not better. Like, he almost had 2 careers. So it's just the longevity, everything he did for the business. He runs NXT right now for WWE. It's HBK. That's just the way it is.
Chatty, is it going to be Shawn Michaels or is it going to be CM Punk?
It's definitely Shawn Michaels. I don't like Phil Brooks. He's not good. His underpants look goofy. I'm sorry.
He's not even fine.
No, he is
Wow.
unfine. His
Not
promo
even
skills are
fine.
excellent, but I mean, like, no, I can't.
Well, Brayden, you did a really good job talking up CM Punk. You actually made me a little bit interested, but then I remembered that Shawn Michaels is Shawn Michaels. And so I am going to stick with Shawn Michaels, and he will continue into round 2. Next, Chad is on the outs this time, literally and figuratively on the edge, as the 3-seed champ is currently outvoted against 2-seed John Cena. Brian, give us your rap why Cena should move into round 2. Chad, see if you can bring the edge back from the extinction in this bracket. Chad, please go first.
You think you know me, or you don't. It doesn't really matter. Edge, this is honestly a little bit of a protest vote against John Cena, partially for what Brayden was saying in the last argument, which was Cena was just at the top of the main event for so long, even though he's like, really? I don't know. I never really thought Cena was all that impressive. Edge started out in the Brood and had a really cool aesthetic with that. He had like the glasses and the long trench coat and the long hair. And then he had a really good tag team run with Christian, and they were doing a lot of really cool stuff with the like tables, chairs, ladders, things like that. And then he finally got into the main event scene, and he's done very well for himself, even coming back to WWE for. Well, he was there for a year or 2, and then he jumped over to AEW
About
after
3.
being gone for a while.
What was that, Brayden?
He was back for a couple
About
years.
3. Also,
Yeah.
tables, ladders, and chairs.
Yeah,
Not
sorry, I
tables,
realized I
ladders,
didn't get the
ladders.
cadence right. But in any event, I think Cena's super, super overrated, is a lot of it. I like Edge. I like his look. I like the way that he worked in the ring. And that's really all I've got. His finisher, the spear, is really iconic. I mean, a lot of people are using it, but he had one of the better ones, I thought.
Okay. Did he sway you, or are you sticking with John Cena?
I'm sticking with John Cena 100% because Edge, well, one of them broke their necks, one of them didn't. Simple as that.
You like wrestlers who don't break their necks.
Not that. I
Does
like
seem
the
to be a
ones.
consistent trend. Yes.
I like the ones that don't have a 9-year career gap.
Oof, okay. Brian, did he sway you, or are you sticking with John Cena?
I don't even like John Cena, but honestly, I never thought Edge was that great. Like, he was a really good upper mid card guy, but I just never saw him as the guy. And ultimately, that's where it comes down to. And if we're talking about everything else, I mean, Cena's got 16 title runs, and he's John freaking Cena, and he's a household name. He is. And he's just not John Cena. That's all there is
Edge
to
is
it.
a household name. lots of young couples engage in a lot of edge.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's the same thing.
Oh,
But you might want
oh,
to do some market research on that and let me know what you can find out.
This is a family show, Chad.
people who edge eat our crackers. I don't know, and frankly, I don't
I don't
want to
care to
know.
know. Yeah,
That's a
okay.
demographic we can do without.
All right, I'm sticking with Cena here. It's John Cena, and is he the pepperoni argument? He is. So I'm going to move him into round two. Next, the panel is currently split between two macho men: one seed Randy Savage and four seed Brock Lesnar. Brayden, here comes the pain. Grab your sword and take a stab at defending Lesnar. I will exclaim, "Oh yeah!" as I remember why I love Randy Savage. Brayden, please go first.
Brock Lesnar, first of all, he has actual fighting skills, so he is a legit person. He was in the UFC for a good amount of time and has legitimate fighting skills. He has had some of the greatest storylines, especially in recent memory, with Roman Reigns. He had an incredible rivalry with Cody Rhodes. He had an incredible rivalry with CM Punk, as I've already mentioned, I believe. Back in the 2000s, he was also a really big name. I believe one of the reasons Stone Cold left was actually because it was like him and Brock Lesnar in like a match, and they didn't advertise it, which was a little dumb. But Brock Lesnar was like him versus Kurt Angle actually was one of the greatest matches of all time. Almost broke his neck, but he didn't. That's
And
why
there you
he's
go.
better than Edge.
And that's why
There you go.
that's why Braden's vulnerable. He did
He's-
not break his neck.
He
Yep.
is the beast, Brock Lesnar. He's had some just incredible matches. He's got an incredible finisher that's been very well protected. The F5, just really incredible worker. He's shown off his mic skills recently. Most of the time he's had Paul Heyman, but recently he hasn't, and he's been able to show like why he can be that guy on the mic as well. He's had some really creative matches, like the last man standing match with Roman Reigns at SummerSlam, where he brought out a whole freaking tractor. And if someone flipping the ring with a tractor doesn't make you want to vote for them, I don't know what will.
That is pretty badass, I have to say.
Yeah, Kurt Angle never brought a tractor out to the ring.
No, it's
Just a
true.
milk truck.
Yeah.
I've driven a tractor. Does that mean that I should advance? No, I'm just kidding.
Yes.
So first of all, drag Randy Savage by saying he doesn't have any fighting skills. Thanks so much for that.
No problem.
Well, he doesn't have any skills at this
He
point
is
in time.
unfortunately one of the multiple people on this bracket who's deceased. So let's talk about Randy. Randy was a critical part of the 80s breakout for WWE. He was right there along with Hulk Hogan, Roddy Piper, Andre the Giant as these larger than life characters that exploded way beyond the limits of the WWE, becoming known pop culture entities. Savage was also kind of a pioneer in the whole WWE stunt department when it comes to like his relationship with Miss Elizabeth, right? She was the glamorous lady who was his manager. She was actually his wife in real life, and then they had a courtship on the show and ended up getting married on TV in the Match Made in Heaven. The two would later divorce both on the show and in real life, and Miss Elizabeth met a tragic end, as so many involved in wrestling often do. But Macho Man Randy Savage made a big impression on wrestling. He also became a general pop culture icon due to his work as a spokesperson for Slim Jim for much of the 90s, and he even appeared in the original Spider-Man movie as an actor, so he did pretty well. But Chad, where are you on this one?
Randy Savage. Brock Lesnar doesn't have a rap album, and Randy Savage does. So
Yet John Cena does as
I
well.
actually look at that as a plus for Brock Lesnar.
Also, John Cena has a rap album. John Cena has multiple rap albums, yet you voted for Edge. So
are any of them titled "Be a Man"? And
No,
do
but
any
they
of them
are
contain
actually-
a diss track of Hulk Hogan?
they are actual platinum albums, though.
I don't care. I don't
Brock
care.
Lesnar
Look at my
might be
two
the manliest
criteria.
man that's ever existed. Like he would literally use Randy Savage as a toothpick before he was deceased.
He's no Bill Goldberg. I'm just
He
gonna
is
say
no
it.
Bill Goldberg. I just think Savage's cultural impact and his versatility. I mean, he was doing things at the time that most people weren't doing, like the off the rope stuff. And I mean, obviously Lesnar is just phenomenal. And if he was up against most of the other people in this bracket, I would go with Lesnar.
He's
His
not
fight-
fine. He's better than fine.
Oh, he's better than fine. Yeah,
Oh.
I appreciate that you keep going back to that, but it was a one-off comment, so fuck off. But
Thought this
with
was a family show.
no,
Well, technically it is, yes. But so Chad, you're sticking with Randy.
yeah.
Brian, where are you on this one? Is it Brock Lesnar or is it Randy Macho Man Savage?
It's Lesnar. He's an absolute beast, and he could destroy most of these people in a real fight. He's a very unique champion and athlete.
Okay, I
Chad?
have a rebuttal on that. he could destroy these people if they fought him within like maybe the first 3 to 5 minutes. If you watch most of his UFC fights, he basically just goes all out for 3 minutes and then he just dies. If he doesn't do anything within that, it doesn't usually go his way.
That sounds
Yeah,
Also,
but we're talking about WWE. We're not talking about UFC.
the other thing I will say is when we're going, like, again, my metrics with regards to Bret Hart, like the look, the work, and the promo, Macho Man's promos, seriously, versus Brock Lesnar had to get somebody to talk for him for the majority of his career.
The man is all-time gold medalist for commitment to cowboy hats and fringe jackets. I mean, you can't
True.
touch the fashion. That being said, we are split, and
Lesnar wore a cowboy hat too, okay?
And a man
okay.
bun. And he actually managed to make a man bun look actually manly, which is hard to do.
Well, since we are split, I'm going to pass the tiebreaker along to Brayden this time. Is alphabetically he's next. Brayden, where are we going?
We're going with Brock because while you may have said that you didn't want your bracket to get messed up because of your decision, Uncle Chad, mine has Brock Lesnar winning, so I don't want my bracket to get messed up.
Okay, so we're going to move Brock Lesnar into round 2 as Randy Macho Man Savage, aka the Kool-Aid Man of the WWE, will be out of the competition. Finally, in round 1, the bulk of the panel is still suffering from Hulkamania as they prefer 2-seed Hulk Hogan, but Brayden will lie, cheat, and steal to keep 3-seed Eddie Guerrero in this bracket. Chad, tear off your t-shirt as the Hulkamania runs wild through your veins. Brayden tells us why you will always viva la razza. Brayden, please go first. Is it la razza or la raza?
It's La Raza, I believe. I'm not great at Spanish, I take French, but that doesn't matter. Eddie Guerrero is a generational talent, and it's really, really unfortunate that he did pass away early. He is one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. He had some incredible matches. He was one of the talents who switched from WCW to WWE. It's really unfortunate that he did pass away so early. I'll be honest, because he didn't have that long of a career in the WWE, there's not much to talk about. However, there is when he did defeat Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania for the WWE Championship, highly regarded as as an instant classic of its time and a classic now, one of the best matches ever. He's just a really good talent, incredible athleticism, basically defied all of the norms of the WWE that only big men could succeed and that they had to just stay on the ground and ground pound, and that was it. And then Eddie Guerrero comes in with all his high flying moves and his unique techniques like his lying, cheating, and stealing, where he would famously make a hitting sound and throw a chair or a title belt or something at their opponent, fall to the ground, get them disqualified. Incredibly hilarious gimmick that is still referenced to this day. An incredible match with Rey Mysterio for the custody of a child. I mean, if you're not voting with someone who had a ladder match for the custody of a child, I don't know why you're voting at all, basically.
Was David Bowie involved in this? You don't even get that
He may have been
reference.
backstage.
Okay,
Don't
great.
understand your references.
That's okay. That's all right. Great argument, Brayden. That being said, it's a 3-1. Chad, did he sway you, or are you sticking with Hulk Hogan?
Oh, I'm not even particularly a big Hulkamaniac these days, but this is the pepperoni argument of it's Hulk Hogan. We've got to at least have him in the second round.
Brian.
Love Eddie, but Hogan's Hogan.
All right, so we are going to move Hulk Hogan into round 2, and that's the end of round 1. We're going to take a quick break to grab a few steel chairs for round 2. We'll be right back after these messages.
Hey there! If you're enjoying this episode of the Great Pop Culture Debate, and I sure hope you are, we would love for you to consider supporting the show on Patreon. Patreon sponsorships start at $5 a month and include loads of great perks, including access to our super active Discord server, exclusive episodes, and warm-ups you won't hear anywhere else. And at the $10 level or higher, your own GPCD tote bag, which is only fitting, as this is basically our version of an NPR pledge drive. We can only produce this show with your support, so please consider heading to patreon.com/greatpopculturedebate and joining us today.
And we are back for round 2 of our best WWE Champion debate. Before we get into the Elite 8, I want our panelists to share their social media accounts, what else they're working on, and when they got into the WWE. Brayden, being young and dealing with the insanity that is social media at your tender age, I will opt not to ask you about that, but tell people when you first got into wrestling and what your kind of first memories are.
My first big wrestling memory is when Seth Rollins cashed in his Money in the Bank briefcase at Mania 31 to make it a triple threat between Brock Lesnar, him and Roman Reigns.
Cool. And you've attended 2 different WrestleManias, correct?
Indeed. WrestleMania 40, which was just this past one, it was a two-nighter with the big main event being Cody Rhodes versus Roman Reigns, Bloodlines rules, anything goes. You don't understand what half of those words
Nope.
mean. And WrestleMania 35, which was the first WrestleMania to have a women's main event, which was Becky Lynch, Charlotte Flair, and Ronda Rousey.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for doing this. It's been a lot of fun. Brian, talk to us about your socials and what else you're working on and when you remember getting into wrestling.
I mean, it was a kid. You know, we watched it growing up. I remember watching the very first WrestleMania back in the day on closed circuit TV.
Yep, correct.
You know, and I watched it really up until I left for college, and then I kind of fell out of it, and then kind of fell back in love with it. So I've been watching wrestling for probably more than I haven't, if that makes sense.
Sure.
As far as socials, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter. Facebook, you just look for my name. I think it's the Rez on Twitter. But if you're want to see something that's way more interesting than that, check out my band Tetanus. It's not spelled like the disease. It's TETNESS. We're on Facebook and Twitter. Been doing that for a little over a year now. I do the vocals. We got a couple of really talented guitar players, drummer and a bass player, and we do a lot of fun covers, and we just have a really good time doing it. So, if
And
you're ever in the Rochester area, stop by and check us out.
I was going to say in the Rochester, New York area. So that's where
Yeah.
you can find Tetanus. And I keep
Most
pushing
dangerous band in Parma. That's us.
I keep pushing to do the Tetanus Christmas album, a very Tetanus Christmas, and they resist.
I'm not opposed. Actually, we could have
Please.
some fun with that.
Please do that.
I'm saying. Well, thank you so much for doing this, Dr. Chad, as our Patreon sponsor for this episode. First of all, why did you choose this topic?
It was one of the few things left that we hadn't really touched on in terms of the topics that I've hit. My interactions with pop culture are pretty minor, but just kind of the way that I interact with things is I either just more or less ignore them or I do a really deep dive into things. And wrestling's been a part of, our family since we were itty bitty. Kind of answering your second question, I remember some of my earliest memories as a kid is sitting in that little wooden chair that we used to have in the living room watching like the Sunday morning wrestling shows or whatever with Dad. And it was one of the few things that I was actually able to interact with Dad about, especially from a young age. So, like, when I get those reels that come through on Facebook, a good portion of it is, like, clips from the 80s, 90s, and Attitude Era of wrestling, and I'm just always just clicking through them.
Oh, that's funny because my reels all are about my father making me cry. So, yeah, it all connects.
Some say tomato, some say tomato.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for sponsoring this episode. I hope you're enjoying yourself. The best way to follow me is at Great Pop Culture Debate on Instagram, Threads, or TikTok. On Blue Sky, we're at gpcd.bluesky.social or at gpcd on Mastodon. Make sure you're also subscribing to the Great Pop Culture Debate on YouTube, where we post original video monthly, I would say. We're going to work on that. But what you really need to do right now is to sign up for our weekly newsletter, new every Tuesday at noon, which tells you about everything new in pop culture that week. Sign up by finding the link on this episode at greatpopculturedebate.com or via the link tree on any of our social media accounts. Now let's move into round two before Vince McMahon tries to hire one of us to be his personal assistant. First, it's The Rock versus Stone, as the bulk of the panel is sticking with one seed Stone Cold Steve Austin, but I'm interested in discovering the source of that delightful aroma from two seed The Rock. Brian, quote scripture from the Book of Austin as you push Steve into the Final Four. I will go Hollywood as I push for The Rock. Brian, do you want to go first? We haven't really talked about Steve Austin yet.
Yeah, what's up with that?
He got basically unanimous voted into round two.
Well, there was one person, if I recall, that wasn't
Correct.
on board with that. So Stone Cold, at the end of the day, will probably always be my favorite wrestler. He's what brought me back to wrestling. I remember hearing that Mike Tyson was going to be on, and we had watched the Tyson fights growing up, so I'm like, well, that's kind of cool. I'm going to check this out. The next thing I know, I'm watching this guy flip Mike Tyson, the double bird, right, and just create absolute chaos. And I was like,
I watched a Tyson fight growing up, and it wasn't that great. Okay.
well, it's better to watch it than be on the other end of it. But and then I was hooked. Like I saw what was that, and it was unpredictable. It was chaotic. It was edgy. And truthfully, if Stone Cold doesn't happen and he doesn't explode the way that he did, WWF, WWE might not be a thing today, because WCW was absolutely whipping their ass, and him and The Rock and Triple H and that crew were able to turn the tide. But he was the straw that stirred the drink. Everything that happened revolved around Stone Cold Steve Austin and what he had going on. And he was a great wrestler too. Like, he unfortunately did break his neck, so that might hurt his chances with Brayden. But he was dumped on his head by Bret Hart's brother, and And so he had
Let's
to
not
adjust
go
his
there.
style. He had to adjust his style, but he was still a very good in-ring performer. Tons of charisma, great on the mic. I mean, there's just, he's Stone Cold. He's the guy.
It does not surprise me at all that he's the person that brought you back in. Your personality and Stone Cold Steve Austin's kind of projected personality are very similar. It's basically a circle as a Venn diagram. I'm going to talk about The Rock, and my feeling is that this one's going to come down to what you're voting on for criteria. If you're talking about the people and their impact within the WWE, Stone Cold, I think, probably has the edge here because, as Brian kind of pointed out, Stone Cold essentially saved the WWE at kind of its lowest point.
Yep.
If you're talking about who is the bigger star from the WWE, it's absolutely The Rock. Yes, Stone Cold was huge, absolutely, but
Hey, Stone Cold was on Nash Bridges.
okay, well, there you go. That's
Yeah.
basically the limit of his appeal, right? But The Rock has become one of the biggest movie stars literally in the world. Forbes listed him as the highest paid actor in Hollywood, pulling in more than $80 million in both 2019 and 2020. And you can say that has nothing to do with his wrestling, that has nothing to do with him and the WWE. He was widely loathed when he started. And he has a great arc where he kind of dug in. He played that heel at first, and then he turned it around and he built this career out of grit and scrap. And I don't know who else in this federation has achieved what The Rock has. Period. I mean, Hulk Hogan was obviously a breakout star back in the 80s. Nobody has hit the heights that The Rock has. This dude, not only is he headlining movies at this point, he's had TV series, he's got a fucking energy drink. Like, he's everywhere. And I do think that that is down to his abilities as a wrestler, his charisma, which is off the charts. He's just a star, period. Chad, where are you on this? Are you Stone Cold or are you The Rock?
I'm Stone Cold for a lot of the reasons that Brian said. The Attitude Era was huge. Rock was a huge part of the Attitude Era, but if you're talking about the characters and the people that moved that, Stone Cold's 1A and Rock is 1B probably. But he's definitely the support for that. Stone Cold, when you talk about ring skills, he was literally the ringmaster was his original gimmick, and thank goodness they got rid of that. Everything Brian said was right. Like, without Stone Cold, WCW probably wins the Monday Night Wars. WWE gets folded into WCW or something like that. And then, I mean, who knows? You've got David Arquette as the heavyweight champion for maybe longer than the couple of weeks it was.
And I thought this timeline was the darkest timeline. Thank you for that insight. Brayden, where are you? Is it going to be Stone Cold Steve Austin or is it going to be The Rock?
It's gonna be Stone Cold, but also I'd like to address these allegations that I hate people who broke their neck. I do not. Big E is one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. Broke his neck. We named our dog after him.
Well, that is 3 for Stone Cold Steve Austin, and he will move into the next round. So if you want to see him kick Rock's ass, give me a hell yeah.
Hell
Oh
yeah.
yeah!
All right, we'll move Stone Cold into round 3. Next, the panel is evenly split between 1 seed The Undertaker and 3 seed Kurt Angle. I had no idea where this one was going, so I don't have any intro. I'm just going to go around the horn here. Brayden, where are you? Is it going to be Kurt Angle or The Undertaker?
The Undertaker easily. He had one of the best last matches of all time against AJ Styles, and that really pushes it in. Like, he was able to keep going with that stuff, even though he definitely shouldn't have, to be honest, but they were able to like make a style that worked. So I'm just gonna go with The Undertaker because he's the very, 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 very obvious choice.
Okay, Brian, is it The Undertaker or is it Kurt Angle here?
It's Undertaker, but I want to address something, and I'm not going to be a jerk about it, but like Chad actually brought up a very valid factual point about the Undertaker's lack of championship runs, and he didn't hold the title for very long, and then those are very factual things, right? So the thing with the Undertaker is he was the guy that they gave the ball when shit hit the fan. So when they were struggling and they needed someone to kind of boost and hold the line, that's when they turned to The Undertaker. He didn't need the title to be The Undertaker. Some of these other characters needed the title to make them special. The Undertaker, whether you talk about it as the character or as the person or whatever you want to make it into, like the Undertaker character didn't need the title, which is why he didn't hold the title as much or as long as any of these other guys.
Does that make him a better champion or is that irrelevant?
I think it makes him a better character and persona, but that's part of being a champion.
Okay, good argument. Chad, I'm going to guess you're going with Kurt Angle here?
Yeah, I'm still with Kurt Angle. It's a close one, and it might just be recency bias in terms of I did a little bit of going back and watching some old matches, and the Undertaker didn't look nearly as good as I remember him being when I was a kid. Like his first
HD
couple of
is a
matches were
bitch.
amazing. I think that might be part of it too, but like And I should like him because he incorporates some actual MMA style stuff into his move set. He's got a submission, like a Gogoplata submission, which is pretty interesting as one of his finishers.
Called the Hell's Gate.
It's called a Gogoplata. So write that down. Angle from the perspective of, again, like actual like amateur wrestler, won a gold medal, transferred over into WWE, into sports entertainment, naturally took to it. Undertaker had to find his way through being mean Mark Callis over in WCW before he hit it. It's a preference thing, and Angle's my preference here.
I will continue to vote for Chad because he's the Patreon sponsor of this episode, and I don't want to see his
Nepotism.
it's totally nepotism. But that being said, Brian is the tiebreaker this time. So Brian, who's advancing?
Not Kurt Angle.
Okay, not Kurt Angle. The
Yeah.
Undertaker will advance into the final four.
But
Next,
I
it
will
is
say, for anyone that wants to see a great Kurt Angle match, his right match against The Rock at No Way Out, I think 2002, or his match with King of the Ring with Shane McMahon, fantastic.
Oh,
Look him up.
where he dropped
Great
Shane
match.
on his
that
head
poor-
twice.
That poor Boston son. Okay, not poor at all.
all right. This time we have another split between sex symbols 2 seed John Cena and 1 seed Shawn Michaels. Chad, get in the ring with Mr. WrestleMania as you tag team for Shawn Michaels. I will use hustle, loyalty, and respect as I push for John Cena. Chad, please go first.
Shawn Michaels is Mr. WrestleMania. He's the showstopper. He's been around in various different iterations for, I mean, since the 90s. And, you know, as Brian mentioned, he was one of the few people that stuck around when everybody was jumping to WCW for the big bucks, even though a good portion of the clique, literally, were the people that went off. Michaels has had great matches with multiple people through multiple generations, continues to support the organization through developing NXT and running that organization. His matches with Stone Cold, his matches with Bret Hart. He's a central fixture of the Montreal Screwjob and everything.
Tell me
that comes
more.
along with that.
Okay.
I know
Finally,
that's
we
just you going across the border every night. I get it, but I mean, as a performer, he's widely regarded as one of the strongest in-ring performers that WWE's ever had. I think it goes a little far sometimes. He goes a little into the overselling, which I don't really enjoy, especially that SummerSlam match with Hulk Hogan. But that was him sticking it to Hogan.
I wasn't gonna mention that at all.
You've got to love it. You've got to love it.
Do you want to tell people what you're talking about?
Sure. So selling is the act of actually like making it seem like the moves are impactful. And so Hulk Hogan is notorious for his backstage politicking and basically just, you know, using creative control to do things the way that he wants them to be done. And so there were originally plans for him and Shawn Michaels to have a series of 3 matches where they would each do 2. And then I think it was supposed to be Hulk took the trilogy, but I don't remember anymore. But then at the last minute, Hulk was like, that doesn't work for me, brother. And they just did one match.
That doesn't work for me, brother.
They had one match at SummerSlam that Hulk was slated to win. And so, like, if you watch that match, Michaels just literally comically flops at every single thing he does. Like,
So good.
he's on top of the ropes, and like Hulk kicks him in the midsection, and he jumps like 3 feet in the air, bounces around, gets up off the mat, spins in the 360, and falls down. It's incredible.
You almost swung me there because, if nothing else, what I'm getting from this is Shawn Michaels is a petty icon. And that's
Yes.
what I look for in my wrestlers. I'll say this about John Cena. Again, part of my rubric, and people can completely dismiss this, is yes, they have to be big stars within the WWE, but do they go beyond that? And I think after The Rock at this point, Cena is not only the one who is kind of second biggest, but I think he has the potential to actually become bigger than The Rock. I think he has more range as an actor than The Rock does. I think he picks very smart projects that focus on both comedy and physicality. And I think he had another great scrappy run in the WWE. I watched the Mr. McMahon thing on Netflix, and like he gives his story about how he became John Cena. They did a call like, we're desperate, we need people to step up, and he's like, I'm gonna do it. And he did, and he really clawed his way to the top of that organization. But I've heard a lot of people saying dismissive things about John Cena. Brian, where are you on this?
This one was really hard for me. And I'm not a John Cena guy, but you can't ignore what he has meant to the company. Overall, I just think that Shawn Michaels is a much more dynamic performer. Had the 2 different runs, still does a lot of stuff with WWE today. Maybe it's just the kid in me, because Shawn Michaels was more someone that I saw growing up and watched him turn into HBK, you know? But for me, it's Shawn Michaels.
Brayden, is it John Cena or is it Shawn Michaels?
It's very obviously John Cena. Also, may I just say, you keep saying John Cena. You sound like Santino Marella right now. We are right. We are in fact white. Please respect that and pronounce his name properly.
I'll pronounce it however I want.
Well, you're gonna sound like Santino Marella. Is that what you want?
And you're gonna sleep in the garage tonight. It is what it is.
What was that, Chad?
I have 2 more pitches that I can make here.
Okay.
So, Shawn Michaels, number 1. Did Marty Jannetty jump through a plate glass window to escape John Cena? No, he did not. Number 2,
That was
Shawn
the
Michaels.
first great heel turn.
It was
that
so
was
good.
good.
And then, Eric, do you like Syracuse, New
No.
York?
No.
Okay. Shawn Michaels was beaten up in a bar fight in Syracuse, New York, and so probably also hates Syracuse.
That's where he lost his smile, I believe.
That's the reason I'm going to switch to Shawn Michaels. I'm going to
Well-
do it. Also, because, Brayden, I warned you that this was going to happen. Part of my other rubric was who's an actual hotter person. And Shawn Michaels at his peak was like fire. That man was scorching. Suck it gladly. So that's 3 for Shawn Michaels, and he's going to move to the final 4. Next, finally in round 2, it's 2-seed Hulk Hogan and 4-seed Brock Lesnar. Brian, say your prayers and eat your vitamins as you push for Hulk Hogan. Brayden, what are you and Brock Lesnar going to do when Hulkamania runs wild on you? Brian, please go first.
I don't blame Brayden for voting for Lesnar because he wasn't around for most of Hulk Hogan's stuff, right?
That just
And-
means you're old.
Yep.
Sure, I am old, but here's the thing: Brock Lesnar wouldn't have the opportunity to be in WWE, WWF if Hulk Hogan hadn't paved the way for it. And that doesn't mean he's a great human being and a great wrestler, because he's not really either one of those things. But literally, the first 9 to 10 WrestleManias all revolved around Hulk Hogan. Without Hulk Hogan, there probably isn't a WrestleMania. Without WrestleMania, there's no Royal Rumble, there's no Survivor Series, there's no SummerSlam. Like, all of it was built on his back. So, greatest performer? No. Decent promo, rips his shirt off, right? But ultimately, he was the foundation for all of it, and I just don't think you can dismiss that.
So, Brayden, tell me why Brock Lesnar is better than Hulk Hogan that doesn't involve the argument that people are old.
Okay, so you've stolen all of my argument. I'm joking.
And
As
we're
you
done.
have very obviously stated, Hulk Hogan sucks. He's not a good person. He's not a good wrestler. He said many, many more than questionable things. And his entire thing is, I'm going to rip my shirt off and I'm going to beat you up a little bit. He has the stupidest gimmick of all time, which includes standing up while getting punched. Like, that's
He's
not...
hulking up. And I would like to point out that Brock Lesnar has ended every black WWE champion's reign. So if we want to get into, like, murky waters, we could bring that up. Every single one.
The person I chose doesn't need an unfathomable amount of spray tan. However, Brock Lesnar is the beast. He made a man bun look good, Uncle Eric. You need to understand that. He's not afraid to, get hurt. Like, in his match at, I believe, Backlash with Cody Rhodes, took a bump face first into the damn turnbuckle, completely on, no pads, bled everywhere. It was incredible. This isn't his less of a anti-Hulk Hogan vote, although it very much is still a anti-Hulk Hogan vote. He is just a horrible wrestler, and his hulking up is a dumb name and a dumb gimmick, because who just stands up while getting punched?
90% of AEW's roster, actually. But
Is it going to be Hulk Hogan or is it going to be Brock Lesnar for you?
It's still Hulkamania at this point, and I don't have great love for the Hulkster. But yes, I am stone old Steve Austin over here. But
Yeah.
it's going to be
Well
the
done.
Hulkster.
I
Thanks.
think Brock Lesnar has had a great run in this here bracket, but I think if we did this and Hulk Hogan did not make the Final Four, it would be wild. So we are going to move Hulk Hogan into the Final Four, and that's it. We have our Final Four. We're going to take a quick break and hang out with Captain Lou Albano and Cyndi Lauper. We'll be right back after these messages.
Another email newsletter? God, I know. But listen, the Great Pop Culture Debate newsletter, it's actually useful. Give us 3 minutes of your lunch break, and we'll tell you all the coolest new stuff in pop culture that week. The biggest new movies in theaters, the hottest new albums about to drop, the TV shows everyone will be talking about. We bring it to you every ball. It's all thriller and no filler, and you'll also find out all the fun news from the podcast. Subscribe today at greatpopculturedebate.com/subscribe.
And we are back with the final four of our best WWE champion debate. At this point in the show, I like to take a step back and see if it shook out the way I expected it to. I also like to add at this point that no matter which option wins, we are celebrating all of these entries, and I hope nobody gets salty about what comes next. We have 3 1 seeds and a 2 seed, which I think is pretty good. It's Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Undertaker, Shawn Michaels versus Hulk Hogan, Hulk being our only 2 seed. Brayden pointed out that these are all old people, and I think that's fair. It definitely skews 90s to early 2000s, I would say. Chad is the Patreon sponsor for this episode. Does that feel right to you, minus Kurt Angle?
I'm glad you said that because that was where I was going. No, I mean, those are definitely a lot of the top people there. Shawn Michaels feels a little out of place, I guess, but no, it's a good list.
All right, let's get into it. We're going to go around the horn. It's 1 seed Stone Cold Steve Austin versus 1 seed The Undertaker. I would like to start with Chad. Where are you going on this one?
Stone Cold for sure.
Brian.
Stone Cold. The look, the charisma, the finishing move. We didn't even talk about his finishing move. Stunner, maybe the best finishing move in the history of the WWE. And you can put it on everybody. Fantastic. Stone Cold all the way. And the music. Can't go wrong with the Stone Cold theme song, too.
Brayden. It's The Undertaker versus Stone Cold Steve Austin. Where are you going?
This is really tough for me. First of all, if we want to talk like good finishers, the
I'm
Tombstone.
going Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Okay. If we want to talk finishers, the Tombstone Pile Driver. If we want to talk about music, the entire aura of The Undertaker's entrance is incredible. It's still really tough, but I don't want to get shunned and go down 3-1, but I'm gonna go down 3-1 and choose The Undertaker.
You're not going to be shunned for choosing what you think is right, and you had great arguments for it. So I
I will shun
appreciate.
him.
Yeah, you'll get
I'm
shunned for other
done.
reasons. Yeah.
I
If The
appreciate.
Undertaker's music and entrance started at the beginning of this podcast, he still wouldn't have made it to the ring by this
I
point.
remember we timed it once, and it was like 4 minutes.
Well, you did a great job, and I respect the arguments, but I'm also going to give it to Stone Cold Steve Austin here. So he will continue to the final 2. Next, it's Shawn Michaels versus Hulk Hogan. I'd like to start with Brayden. You think both of these people are ancient. Which one do you prefer?
Prefer Shawn Michaels,
Okay.
but
Which
not
one
by
do-
much.
Okay. And you think he should advance to the final 2?
Yes.
Brian.
When you put it like that, like who do I prefer? I prefer Shawn Michaels, but ultimately I think Hulk Hogan is the right answer for what we're doing.
Okay. Chad, where are you on this one?
This is actually really hard. If I go by the Bret Hart rubric, I think Shawn Michaels actually wins this because, like, look, both of them have looks in different ways. I've seen Hulk Hogan described as having hot dog-like skin.
Yes, that's
And-
exactly right.
It's so weird. Like, I don't know that I've ever seen another human being that looks exactly like him with that, like, ring of, like, a curtain of golden hair on the background
Yep.
and, like, a hot dog that's been in the 7-Eleven rollers, like, all day. Like, what an utterly unique looking individual. But then when you look at promos, they both have very good promo skills. Hogan for, his reasons. But then it really comes down to in-ring work. And I mean, Shawn Michaels is just a much better worker than Hogan is. Brayden was talking about Hogan's in-ring skills. He actually has more skills than he usually displayed in WWE. Like if you look at his footage from Japan, even during the time where he was at his height in WWE, I mean, he was doing like scissor leg takedowns and stuff like that. Like it was all like the same kinds of things, but he showed an agility and he showed a moveset that he just never displayed in the States, which was punch, eye rake, slam, big boot, big leg drop, all that stuff. So by rubric, it's Michaels. By actual like best champion, it's Hogan. I mean, finisher-wise, Sweet Chin Music is an amazing, amazing finisher in the way it gets hit. The big leg is a absolute snoozer of a finisher. And you know what? For that reason, I'll go Michaels.
Okay.
Uncle
Yes.
Eric, before
Yes.
you make your decision, may I just point out that Hogan cared not at all for the WWE. He was in Japan. Thank you for bringing this up, Uncle Chad. He had his WWE belt. He was in Japan, and he said that the WWE title was a, quote, a toy, and that the real prize he wanted, the angel atop his Christmas tree, was the IWGP belt, or the New Japan Pro Wrestling, like, main title.
Yeah, he was trying to sell the match. He's trying to
Was
sell
that-
the people up
Yeah,
Yeah,
to
was
sell
that
the match.
kayfabe?
That's-
Was that
that's
kayfabe or
literally
was
his
that
job.
real?
Except it pissed everyone in America off, and he only said it because he didn't didn't think it would go and travel all the way to America, but he called the WWE title a toy.
I don't think Hogan did a lot of thinking, I gotta be honest.
He
So-
never does a lot of thinking. That's how he's in the situation he's in.
And that honestly, Brayden, that leads me to my discussion here. Is we were saying during the break that we were surprised that Randy Macho Man Savage was the 1 seed in that part of the bracket, while Hogan was the 2 seed. And I think there's a very good reason for that, which is yes, Hogan is the primacy argument. He was the first superstar to really emerge out of the WWE, but for all of the foundational work he did, for everything he did to launch that organization, he fucked himself up so badly along the way. He has had so many fiascos, both outside the WWE, inside the WWE. Like Brian was saying, you have to separate the art from the artist. In this particular situation, I don't know if that's possible because they are kind of one and the same. He's not a good guy. He's done a multitude of
Agreed.
things that are genuinely awful. Is he more important to the WWE than Shawn Michaels? Sure. Which one was more loyal to the WWE and has actually done more over the course of their career for the WWE? I actually think it's a little bit more of a toss-up there than frankly you would think. Brian, I see you giving me a look like you are crazy. Do you not agree with
No,
that?
no, that's actually not my. That's ironically, that's I wasn't thinking that at all.
That's the look I'm getting.
It's more to me. Listen, Shawn Michaels has done a tremendous amount for the company. I mean, he's still actively involved with the company. You know what I mean?
Right.
But Hogan was the foundation for all of that ultimately. And listen, that doesn't make him a better in-ring performer. He's not. Right?
Right.
And Chad's absolutely right. His finishing move is awful. A leg drop shouldn't even be a move at all, much less a finishing move, right? Now, in fairness, Sweet Chin Music, it's a super kick. So let's not get carried away.
Yeah,
Is it a really good super kick? Yeah, it's a super kick.
It
So
was the super kick, though. It was the super kick before super kicks became a thing.
sure,
I dislike the super kick
It's a
spam.
great super kick, and he delivered it well, and the timing was always spectacular. It's to me, it's almost like the chicken and the egg type thing, except we know what came first. Hogan came first, and if Hogan didn't come first, HBK probably doesn't even have a chance to be HBK. But if you eliminate that part of the argument, at that point, I think you're right, Eric. I think it becomes a much bigger toss-up at that point.
But without Hogan, HBK probably gets good health insurance because they're allowed to unionize.
Also, which one got banned from being shown or mentioned on WWE TV?
Could be either of them, honestly.
It was Hulk Hogan.
Oh.
I'm giving it to Shawn Michaels in part because I fucking hate Hulk Hogan. I do. That man killed Gawker Media. He did. Look it up. So that gives us 3 for Shawn Michaels, and he will continue into the final 2. It's a final 2 of Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Shawn Michaels. Brian, I think I know where you're going here. Brayden, where are you going?
Again, this is really difficult because they're both old and neither of them should... Actually, no, Stone Cold deserves to be in the finals. Shawn Michaels doesn't. It should be Brock Lesnar, and Brock Lesnar should win this entire thing. But you're all old and hate me. I kind of want to go Shawn Michaels just to spite my father here, but I don't think I can because which one of them has had the better recent matches? While Shawn Michaels may have had more recent matches, the better ones was Stone Cold with his one match, which was against Kevin Owens at Mania 38. And it was an actually incredible match.
Chad, where are you on this one? Is it Stone Cold or is it Shawn Michaels?
It's Stone Cold with regards to who's the better champion. The overall body of work. I think Shawn Michaels has had a better and more longer career. Obviously, longer career. I think overall it's been a stronger career. But I mean, Stone Cold was just so hot during that time. It was just absolutely ridiculous how hot he was, and he was just driving that entire product. I'm confused as to how Brayden gets that Brock Lesnar should be the best champion. I just need to tell you you're wrong. But in this particular argument, I think it has to be Stone Cold for
I'm confused how
me.
you get to Kurt Angle being the best champion, but here we are.
All right, well, you guys can be confused about that and take it offline.
That's right. Brian, is it Stone Cold or is it Shawn Michaels?
It's just like the main event of WrestleMania 14
Yeah.
in the Boston Garden. Stone Cold's delivering the stunner. Michaels is going down for the 3 count. Tyson unfortunately fast counted it, but that was the crowning of Stone Cold as WWE Champion, and we're seeing that happen right here on this podcast.
Am I the Mike Tyson in this situation?
You are the
I'm the timekeeper.
You're like the timekeeper, yeah, maybe. Or you're gonna throw Stone Cold his beer after the match.
I'm going to make it a clean sweep, too. We're going to give it to Stone Cold Steve Austin. There you have it. Our pick for the best WWE champion is Stone Cold Steve Austin. Do you agree? Do you think we need a rematch? Tell us how you really feel by leaving a comment on this episode at greatpopculturedebate.com or find us on Blue Sky, Instagram, Facebook, Threads, TikTok, or Mastodon. While you're there, make sure you subscribe and follow the podcast so you can hear about what new debates are coming soon, vote in open polls, and even decide which topics we tackle next. If you really enjoyed this episode, please take a minute to like and rate it on whatever platform you listen on. I want to say thank you to my panel, and thank you especially to Dr. Chad for sponsoring this episode, and thank you for listening. If you loved what you heard, please consider supporting us on Patreon, where you get even more exclusive content and you get episodes a whole day early. We hope you have a good one, and remember, everyone is entitled to their wrong opinion. Rest in peace. No, seriously, to all those deceased wrestlers, I genuinely hope you rest in peace. That's very grim.